Some of us remember that golden age of gaming. Games were groundbreaking because they sparked something incredible. An obsession, a passion, love. Now, game engines offer stunning graphics, lifelike physics, an endless variety of gameplay options, even breathtaking cinematic beauty, dynamic lighting, high-resolution textures, improved graphic pipeline, physics engine, virtual texturing, VR, support, landscape system, near particular effects. So, newer games must be way better than old games because of all these possibilities given, right? Something here isn't right. I just told you about the improvement of game engines. But still, older games are more popular than newer games. Or how is the fanbase of old games like Super Mario 64 bigger than many modern games? Is it because of nostalgia? To understand it better, we must go back in time. Back in the late 90s, Nintendo published The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. How big do you think this game was in terms of file size? Just about 32 megabytes. About 5 seconds of this video is already the size of the whole game. To make it possible to run this game with this limited hardware specs, they relied on real-life and pre-rendered renders scaled down for that realistic look, for example. Or using a smart loading system for levels. As reference, the new Black Ops 6 requires 128 GB of space, or about 4096 copies of Ocarina of Time. Oh, and did you know? This is the grass texture of Super Mario 64. Yeah, it's not zoomed out, that's the original size. But still, Nintendo was able to make this. With limited hardware, they are forced to prioritize gameplay, story and design, resulting in more engaging and creative experiences. Today, with nearly unlimited resources, it's easier to rely on high-end graphics and endless content, which can lead to bloated games that sometimes lack a creative spark. Anthem. Just like an artist with only a pencil instead of a whole arsenal of tools, limitation makes every choice count. But what happens when games go too far in the other direction, when the focus on realism overshadows everything else? Unrecord is a single-player FPS that tells the story of a tactical police officer from the perspective of his body camera. The trailer of this game blew up because of that one feature. This game is way too real. Is that a problem? When you play a game, you are usually looking for a break from reality, a chance to explore something new or imaginative. Unrecord, with its hyper-realistic bodycam visuals, blurs the line between reality and gameplay so much that it can feel unsettling. For some, this level of realism is impressive, but for others, it can be uncomfortable, especially with intense or violent scenes. And not only the graphics, but also that feedback games should provide, like a health bar, hit markers. But all these features aren't there. With so much focus on realism, gameplay mechanics end up feeling secondary. GTA 4's car physics is a good example of realism ruining the fun, because the car steering felt kinda clunky. Unlike GTA 5, where cars feel like toys. While realism is one issue, there's another, the unfinished state of many games at release. There was a huge problem in Digimon World 1. To get inside the castle, you need to talk to Agumon first. In the normal version, he lets you inside after the dialogue, but in the European version of the game, there's a huge bug in the dialogue which doesn't allow the player to get inside the castle. So it was impossible to beat the game. Back in time, games released in their final version. They couldn't get any updates because there was no internet. The game had bugs and glitches? Well, then live with it. Thanks to technology, we are now able to add patches and features to the game. A new evolution of... Well, then there's that problem now. Unfinished games have become a standard in gaming. You buy a game for $60 expecting the full experience, but often you are just getting half of it. Now that developers can push updates, some studios release games in a barely playable state, planning to fix them later. It's practically an industry trend. So what's the result? Every time I turn on Steam to unwind, I end up downloading another 150 gigabytes of update just to start the fucking game. I'm so over it, I would rather pull out my DS and jump into Dr. Kawashima's Brain Age without the wait. Microtransactions offered us a way to buy in-game stuff with real-life money. Some cosmetics for visual looks offer great variety. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion made over millions with just a simple horse armor. They made this as a joke. That is a nice thing, isn't it? Well, it can be, but besides getting pretty cool skins, people discover their gambling addiction. But the problem about that is the fact that this gives you an advantage in-game. How is that fair? But all what industries see is that they are getting profit from people who keep spending their money for them. And because it works, most of the innovation that went into gameplay back then is now only going into making more mechanics to make the people spend more money and make them more addicted.
What's going on, guys? This is JT here. Wait, what was that?
The YouTuber JT's All Business spent over 100,000 bucks in Diablo Immortal. He gained so many advantages that it was actually impossible for him to get into a match.
Anytime I go to the Battleground Captain and I click Find Match, I have not been able to get a queue for the full 2-hour length of the Battlegrounds, right? 0 queues, no matter how long I've queued up, and this has now been ongoing for a month and a half.
Like, what the fuck? Pay to lose, I guess? Whatever we call it, pay to win and microtransactions make serious money for the industry, which brings up an important question. If it's working, why should they stop? They make money with it, and as long as their running system works, why change it? All leading to innovational jumps getting smaller and smaller because they already get enough money. The game is not completed? Still release it. There's still money to make and we can still change stuff later. Let's add gambling to games for real money. Some people would probably buy that stuff. Why not messing up storylines for more entertainment and cut costs on a good working multiplayer system? I could name so many more things, but you get my point. Let's face something else. What makes you feel better? What are you thinking about right now? Good old times? Times that were better than today? Welcome to the illusion of nostalgia. Old Minecraft is not really better. It was very limited compared to newer Minecraft, but we associate this old look with our childhood, and this is one of the reasons why people do think that everything was better in the past, because they only want to remember the good parts. We all do. We are definitely swayed by nostalgia, but that's not all. Our expectations are rising as well. What? What's your problem? I know, it may sound dumb at first, and maybe it even is, but there's something behind it. Because of all these AAA games that had a release after release, our standards have risen as well. And as a game developer myself, I want to mention that it can get quite hard to accomplish what people want. While it was enough in the 80s to develop a simple 2D game, today developers need to do so much more. But don't get me wrong here, this is clearly not an excuse to produce, well, not so good games. And now, to be fair, there are plenty of new games that are really good. Let's talk about a few that get it right. Resident Evil was basically just a shooter game for a good while. Like, where's the horror part? But with Resident Evil 7, there was finally a game with a good horror story which wasn't just Call of Duty. Or as I talked about Halo, many people do hate how it developed, especially people who have played the older games. But as you can see, there are also others who enjoy this new style. Cyberpunk is an awesome game after everything was fixed. And if you ask me, I would definitely prefer Breath of the Wild over Ocarina of Time, because it was beautiful. Or to reverse it, do you think E.T. from 1982 was a good game? Yeah, what the actual fuck? The most essential part about this topic is the evolution of game industries. When you think of a big game studio, maybe you picture a room full of passionate developers, just like me, bringing their dream game to life. But in massive studios with hundreds of employees, that's not exactly the reality. You have got gigantic teams focused purely on business decisions by people who might not even play games. They are the ones deciding what gets cut, what stays, how long the team has, and how much money goes into each part. So if a game feels rushed or needs 50 updates to feel complete, that is often the reason why. Howard Scott Warshaw, the guy who designed E.T. all alone, had only 5 weeks to finish his work due to manufacturing times, which shows us that problems like that occurred in the past as well. Now to answer the question why games feel soulless today. As you might have expected, there's no perfect answer to that. But if games started to look more like games instead of hyper-realistic simulations, or if pay to win finally had an end, we could actually start to see a brighter future. The main problem is the game industry itself. The lack of care among us players got to a point where we can't be proud of our once beloved developers anymore is just crazy. And let's set aside the nostalgia for a moment to appreciate how some aspects of games have genuinely improved over the years. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I built a horror game in just 72 hours which destroys your PC. Link to our Discord in the description.